journey to explore. 10. Mysterious creatures in the Bible. Welcome to an incredible journey into the world of mysterious creatures in the Bible. Today, we'll explore 10 supernatural beings that have fascinated millions of people for thousands of years. From powerful angels to giant monsters, from mysterious kings to the most terrifying villains, each creature has its own story to tell. Buckle up and prepare yourself, because this trip will challenge your imagination and may change how you view the world around you. 1. The 24 Elders, guardians of heaven's secrets. Imagine standing before the gates of heaven. As the gates slowly open, blinding light floods your vision. As your eyes adjust, you see an awe-inspiring sight. 24 thrones arranged in a perfect circle, and on each throne sits a majestic elder. These are the 24 Elders, mysterious figures described in the book of Revelation. They wear pure white robes and golden crowns on their heads. But what makes them so special? The 24 Elders are not just decorative figures in the heavenly palace. They play an important role in worship and governance. Whenever a significant event occurs, the 24 Elders fall down, place their crowns before God's throne, and offer praise. This action demonstrates absolute humility and acknowledges the supreme authority of the Creator. But who are these elders? This question has puzzled Bible scholars for centuries. Some believe they represent the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 apostles, symbolizing all of God's people. Others think they are high-ranking angels. Whoever they are, the 24 Elders remain symbols of wisdom, power, and righteous rule in God's kingdom. 2. The wheels, living machines of the universe. From the solemnity of the 24 Elders, we move to a completely different image, a scene that even in your wildest dreams, you'd struggle to imagine. Picture a sky full of giant wheels, spinning and moving in every direction without needing to turn. Each wheel is like a miniature universe, with smaller wheels turning inside it. And on each wheel, hundreds, thousands of eyes blinking, observing everything around them. These are the wheels, Ophanim, that the prophet Ezekiel saw in his vision. He described them as wheel within wheel, moving alongside living creatures, cherubim, according to the Spirit's will. But these wheels aren't just simple modes of transportation. They're living symbols of God's omniscience and omnipotence. The eyes on the wheels show that nothing can escape the Creator's gaze. The ability to move in any direction without turning demonstrates God's infinite and unrestricted nature. This image, though difficult to understand and somewhat frightening, carries a profound message. The universe is not a mindless machine, but a living entity, controlled by a conscious and purposeful being. 3. Behemoth, the mysterious giant of the Old Testament. From the strange wheels in the sky, we land on Earth and face a gigantic creature so powerful it can shake the earth when it moves. This is Behemoth, one of the most mysterious creatures in the Bible. Described in the book of Job, Behemoth is a creature of extraordinary strength. It eats grass like an ox, has bones like bronze tubes, and legs like iron bars. Its strength lies in its loins and belly. Behemoth is described as the first of God's works, a creature that only the Creator can approach. But what exactly is Behemoth? This question has sparked countless debates between Bible scholars and scientists. Some believe it's a hippopotamus, based on descriptions of its grass-eating habits and river-dwelling nature. Others suggest it might be an extinct dinosaur species, like Brachiosaurus, given its described size and strength. However, perhaps the true significance of Behemoth doesn't lie in identifying exactly what animal it is. In the context of the book of Job, God uses Behemoth as an example of the greatness of His creation. It reminds humans of their smallness before the Creator's power. If humans can't fully understand a creature like Behemoth, How can they comprehend the infinite wisdom and power of God? 4. Leviathan, the terrifying sea monster. From land, we plunge into the deep waters where lurks a creature even more fearsome than Behemoth, Leviathan, the legendary sea monster. Leviathan appears several times in the Bible, especially in the books of Job and Psalms. It's described as a massive, terrifying creature with fearsome teeth all around, scales like shields, and breath that kindles coals. No human weapon can penetrate its skin, and when it rises, even the mighty are terrified. In ancient cultures, Leviathan was often seen as the embodiment of chaos and destruction. It represents the wild, uncontrollable forces of nature that humans must face. In Psalm 74, Leviathan is described as an enemy that God defeated when He created the world, establishing order from chaos. But like Behemoth, Leviathan's deeper meaning doesn't lie in identifying what kind of creature it is. In the book of Job, God uses Leviathan as an example of the greatness of His creation, a creature that humans cannot control or tame. Can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook or tie down its tongue with a rope? God asks Job. The answer is obviously no. Leviathan, with all its terrifying and uncontrollable nature, is still under the Creator's control. This is a powerful reminder of God's supreme power, even over the strongest and most frightening forces in nature. 5. Cherubim, the holy guardians. From giant and fearsome creatures, we move to a completely different type of being, the angels called cherubim. Not the small, cute angels you often see on greeting cards. The cherubim in the Bible are powerful and majestic spiritual warriors. Cherubim appear right from the first pages of the Bible. After Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden, God placed cherubim and a flaming sword that turned in every direction to guard the way to the tree of life. This image shows the cherubim's role as protectors of God's holiness, separating sin from the divine presence. But cherubim are not just guards. In Ezekiel's vision, cherubim are described in more detail. They have 4 faces: the face of a human, a lion, an ox, and an eagle, symbolizing intelligence, strength, service, and swiftness. They have 4 wings, and their entire bodies are full of eyes. In the Jewish temple, images of cherubim were placed on the Ark of the Covenant, considered God's earthly throne. Their wings covered the Ark, creating a sacred space where God met with His people. The presence of cherubim in many parts of the Bible emphasizes their important role in Jewish and Christian theology. They are not just protectors, but symbols of God's presence and glory. Cherubim remind us that the spiritual world consists not only of God and humans, but countless spiritual beings serving various purposes in the Creator's grand plan. 6. Melchizedek, the mysterious king-priest. In our journey through the Bible's mysterious creatures, we encounter a figure both familiar and strange: Melchizedek. Not an angel, not a monster. Melchizedek is a human. But he's no ordinary man. Melchizedek appears like a ghost in Abraham's story. After Abraham returns victorious from battle, Melchizedek, described as king of Salem and priest of God Most High, comes to meet him. He brings bread and wine, blesses Abraham, and receives 1/10 of the spoils from this great patriarch. The strange thing is that Melchizedek appears out of nowhere and disappears just as quickly. There's no information about his origins, no parents mentioned, no genealogy, no birth or death. He's like a character stepping out of another world, fulfilling his role, and then vanishing into the shadows of history. But Melchizedek's story doesn't end there. Thousands of years later, in the New Testament book of Hebrews, Melchizedek appears again. This time, he's compared to Jesus Christ. The author of Hebrews argues that Jesus is a high priest forever, in the order of Melchizedek. a higher and permanent priesthood than that of the Levites. Melchizedek, with his mystery and unique role, becomes a prophetic image of the coming Messiah. He is both king and priest, a rare combination in Jewish tradition. He appears without origin and without end, symbolizing the eternal nature of Christ. Melchizedek reminds us that in God's plan, there are figures and events that go beyond our ordinary understanding. He is a reminder of the mystery and depth of the redemption story that God is writing throughout human history. 7. The Angel of Death, Messenger of Judgment. From the mysterious king-priest, we move to a controversial and often misunderstood figure, the Angel of Death. Although not directly called by this name in the Bible, the concept of an angel bringing death appears in several important stories. The most famous image of this angel appears in the Exodus story. When Pharaoh refuses to let the Israelites go, God sends the final and most terrible plague, the death of the firstborn in Egypt. The Bible describes, "At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt." Although not specifically called the angel of death, this action is understood to be carried out by an angel, a messenger of God's judgment. This image has been deeply ingrained in popular culture, often depicted as a dark figure carrying a scythe, moving through the streets of Egypt on that fateful night. However, it's important to remember that in the Bible, this angel is not an independent entity acting on its own will. It's an instrument of God, carrying out His will. In Egypt's case, it was a final act of judgment after many warnings and opportunities for repentance. The angel of death appears again in the story of King David. When David sins through pride by taking a census, God sends an angel to bring plague upon Israel. The Bible describes this angel with his hand stretched out over Jerusalem to destroy it, before God commands it to stop. These stories remind us of God's sovereignty over life and death, as well as the reality of divine judgment. However, they also show God's mercy. In both cases, some people are saved from destruction through God's intervention. 8. Seraphim, the burning ones. From the gloomy image of the angel of death, we soar to the highest heavens, where we meet another type of angel, the seraphim, the burning ones. Seraphim appear in one of the Bible's most memorable visions, recorded in the book of Isaiah. The prophet Isaiah sees the Lord seated on a high and lofty throne, and above him are the seraphim. Each seraph has 6 wings, 2 wings to cover its face, 2 to cover its feet, and 2 to fly. The name seraphim means burning ones in Hebrew, suggesting their radiant and zealous nature. They are described singing the holy song, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of His glory." Interestingly, the seraphim cover their faces and feet. This can be understood as an act of reverence in the holy presence of God. Even the highest celestial beings must cover themselves before the dazzling glory of the Creator. Seraphim are not just passive worshipers. In Isaiah's vision, a seraph flies to the prophet with a live coal from the altar, touches his lips, and declares that his sin is atoned for. This shows the seraphim's role as servants in purifying and preparing humans for God's presence. The image of seraphim reminds us of God's absolute holiness and the need for purification before we can approach Him. At the same time, it inspires us with a model of zealous and unceasing worship. 9. Demons, the invisible enemies. From the dazzling light of the seraphim, we step into darkness, where the most frightening entities in the Bible lurk, demons. In the Bible, demons are described as evil spiritual entities, often causing suffering and illness to humans. They are considered fallen angels, who followed Satan in rebellion against God and were cast out of heaven. Demons appear many times in the Gospels, where Jesus frequently confronts and casts them out of possessed individuals. These stories demonstrate Jesus' absolute power over evil forces, as well as his compassion for those suffering. One of the most memorable stories about demons is the account of the demon-possessed man in the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus asks the demon's name, it replies, "My name is Legion, for we are many." This story shows that demons can operate in groups and have the ability to cause great devastation. However, it's important to remember that in Christian theology, demons are not forces equal to God. They are fallen creatures, limited in power and ultimately destined for defeat. The book of Revelation describes a future when Satan and his demonic forces will be thrown into the lake of fire, permanently ending their power. The presence of demons in the Bible reminds us of the reality of spiritual warfare happening around us. It calls us to be vigilant and stand firm in faith, trusting in God's ultimate victory over all forces of darkness. 10. Lucifer, Satan, the greatest enemy. Finally, we come to the main antagonist in the Bible's grand narrative, Lucifer, also known as Satan. Lucifer, meaning light bearer in Latin, was originally believed to be one of God's highest-ranking angels. In the book of Isaiah, he is described as the morning star, son of the dawn. Ezekiel 28 describes him as a perfect creature, full of wisdom and beauty, created to be the anointed cherub who covers in God's Eden. But Lucifer committed an unforgivable sin, the sin of pride. Isaiah 14 records 5 times Lucifer says, "I will," showing his ambition to be equal with God. "I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the Mount of Assembly, on the utmost heights of Mount Zaphon. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High." The result of this pride was Lucifer's expulsion from heaven, dragging 1/3 of the angels down with him. From then on, Lucifer became Satan, meaning adversary or accuser. In the Bible, Satan plays the role of God's and humanity's main enemy. In the book of Job, we see Satan challenging God, claiming that Job is only faithful because he's blessed. In the Garden of Eden, Satan, in the form of a serpent, tempts Eve to eat the forbidden fruit, leading to humanity's fall. In the New Testament, Satan continues his role as tempter and adversary. He tempts Jesus in the wilderness, trying to derail the Messiah's mission. Jesus calls Satan a liar and the father of lies, a murderer from the beginning. Although Satan seems powerful, the Bible always emphasizes that his power is limited and will ultimately be defeated. In the book of Revelation, we see the final image of Satan being thrown into the lake of fire, marking the permanent end of his power. The story of Lucifer Satan is a powerful warning about the danger of pride and unchecked ambition. It's also a reminder that even the noblest creatures can fall if they forget their proper place before the Creator. Our journey exploring 10 mysterious creatures in the Bible has come to an end. From the majestic 24 elders to the strange wheels, from the giant behemoth and leviathan to the radiant cherubim and seraphim, from the mysterious Melchizedek to the fearsome angel of death, and finally to demons and Satan. Each creature carries a unique message. These beings are not just imaginary figures to enrich the biblical narrative. They are powerful symbols, representing profound truths about the nature of God, the universe, and humanity's place in the Creator's grand plan. They remind us that this world is more complex and mysterious than we can imagine, that there are invisible forces at work around us, that the battle between good and evil is real and ongoing. But above all, these creatures show us the greatness and power of God. Even the mightiest and most fearsome beings must bow before Him. And while we may feel small before these forces, we're also reminded that we are loved and protected by the One who created them all. As we conclude this journey, we're invited to reflect on our place in this vast universe, to recognize our smallness, but also our immense value in the Creator's eyes, and perhaps, most importantly, to live with awe and reverence before the mysterious and wonderful aspects of life. Thank you for joining us on this exploratory journey. If you found this video helpful and interesting, don't forget to leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss similar content in the future. See you on our next adventure. Next.